Morning Zompoc. I'm Bex and that was Marc, and we're broadcasting from post-zombie apocalypse Britain.
Yep, it's the end of the world, and for the last 22 weeks, we have been surviving in the Zompoc and documenting our stories via this podcast.
Yeah, now, we've had our ups and downs, and we had the Vinning a few weeks ago, which nearly finished us off, but we seem to be okay again.
Yes, the Vinning. That was the Finn vow of, I don't know, what is the vow? The vow's like it separates reality from the land of the dead, and in certain times of year it becomes thinner, and then the land of the dead encroaches upon reality, and weird things happen. I don't think the voice was necessary, but yeah, that's what happened.
No, well, the voice, it gave them a bit more zip, the zombies.
Yeah, lots of zip.
Bit too much fucking zip.
Yeah, but hopefully that's all done for now. So, Bex, you messaged me. You said you had urgent news. So what's so bloody important?
You're not going to actually believe this, but I've actually got a genuine superstar author get in touch. We're going to be interviewing one of my literary heroes.
Really? Who is it?
You're never going to guess.
Nope, I'm not even going to try to guess. Just tell me.
Just honestly guess. Go on, have a go. You won't believe it.
For fuck's sake! Just tell me who it is.
Okay, it's, you're not going to believe this.
Who the fuck is it?
It's Luke Duffy!
I've never heard of him.
Fuck you then. Very excited to be able to introduce to you the author of the series When There's No More Room in Hell, Mr. Luke Duffy. Welcome
to the show, Mr. Luke Duffy.
Welcome.
Good evening and thanks for having me.
You are very welcome. It's lovely to have you here. Obviously, if our listeners, both of them, are listening this evening, and you, or this morning rather, it's called Good Morning Zompoc. It's in the morning. But if you're listening and you don't know who Luke Duffy is, I've put obviously all the information in the blog post there. All the links send you to his Amazon page. You can check out all his books. But I'm pretty sure almost everybody here I know exactly who Luke Duffy is. So welcome, and it's lovely to have you.
Lovely to be here. Gets boring on the zombie apocalypse.
It certainly does. The apocalypse is what we call it because it sends us to sleep.
Apocalypse, that's what we renamed it.
Right, apocalypse, right. So the A has been cancelled out, yeah?
Yep, it's apocalypse.
Apocalypse. Right, Luke, so basically we're just going to have a couple of questions for you. Very informal, just answer, waffle on as much as you want. We waffle on all the time, so you carry on. So the first question that we ask to all the guests that we have on is, how have you been surviving in the zombie apocalypse? Where are you? Have you got supplies? Who are you with? Blah, 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 blah. Just tell us your story.
Well, for the start, The Walking Dead has got a lot to answer for.
Yeah, it really has.
When the zombie apocalypse kicked off, I was expecting to, be jumping through windows, guns, rampaging round through the streets. Instead, I've been stuck in my house, the windows are boarded up, and I'm getting pretty bored, actually. I've got the missing kids with me, but I'm not all that impressed, really, because food's running out. But you need something to eat when you get starving, though, don't you?
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah, exactly. So they're serving the purpose at the moment. That's about all. But the thing is, though, I mean, you always get these people that ask about weapons and stuff like that. I mean, ideally, in the non-reality world, yeah, you'd have everything. You'd have anti-personnel mines, you'd have tripwires set up, you'd have claymores, machine guns. In reality, I think here in the UK, you'd be lucky if you got a hammer.
Yeah.
A B&Q special, and that's about it, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I've got a pokey pointy stick, which is it's my own.
You can't go wrong with a pointed stick.
You can't. It's my own patented design. It's a long pokey pointy stick. Yeah. It served me well.
I had a bat with a couple of nails hammered into it, but during the Vinning a couple of weeks ago, it broke. I really need to get myself a new weapon.
You need to get yourself a Negan special by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
I do.
Just get some barbed wire around the end of it, you can't go wrong.
We can give it a cute little name. We could call it Lucille or Bob, something like that.
Bob the Bat.
Keith's always a good one. Keith the Bat.
Keith the Bat.
That's a nice name. Yeah, it's cute. So... obviously, we know how you're surviving. We know that you're with your family there, and we know what your weapon of choice is. Pretty much whatever you've got laying around, a hammer.
Yep.
I've got some questions about sort of your life as a writer and an author, because that's what fascinates us. That's why we obviously reach out into the apocalypse to find writers and authors. Obviously, your books are obviously the reason you come to our attention about the zombie apocalypse. But we know that the previous to being a wonderful author, that you were a soldier in the parachute regiment. But why did you? I mean, it's a bit of a leap, isn't it? Let's be honest. Why did you decide to go from parachute regiment?
Was that a pun? You know, he was in the parachute regiment, and you just said it's a bit of a leap.
Well, if it was, it wasn't an intentional one. So yeah, we'll just go with yeah. I'm really funny. So you were
we'll just go with that one.
Yeah, let's go with that. So you were a soldier in the parachute regiment, and now you're a writer. How does that happen? I mean, where does the transformation occur?
Well, to be honest with you, I mean, I'm still trying to work it out myself. I did 10 years in the parachute regiment, and then after that, I joined in the what we nicknamed the Gold Rush, where we all went to Iraq, working on the private security circuit. But I mean, it's why I was out there. I started to realise that there was a few of the guys that were writing books about their experiences over there, with a bit of thought. I mean, I'd always been an avid reader. I'd always loved to, pick up a good book and getting immersed in it. But I thought, I've got a few stories to tell. I've got plenty of funny moments, plenty of action film moments. So I started putting them on paper. But it was then that I realised I had a bug for it. I really, really did enjoy putting my thoughts, my feelings, my memories, put them onto paper and filling them out and bringing them to life. And it was from there. I mean, so after I wrote my memoirs about Iraq, it was about 2010 when the first season of Walking Dead came out.
Yeah.
And, I've always been a fan. During the 80s, growing up as a kid, I was always a big fan of the Romero movies. And, even as an adult, every now and again, the question would pop into my head, what if? And I just thought, and parts of it, I mean, I read some of the zombie books that were out at the time. And I did notice that quite a lot of authors would try to speak about battles, they try to describe what it's like to be shot at and stuff, but unless you've actually experienced it, I mean, no disrespect intended to any of the authors, because a lot of them did a good job at, a good effort.
Yeah.
But unless you've actually experienced it, they tend to miss them out. There's that little something missing. So I thought, right, well, I've got that experience. I'll throw that into my books. And so that's where the whole story came about, where a big chunk of the original book, When There's No More Room in Hell, started out in Iraq. And what if it happened and I was stuck in Iraq? There's no way I'm going to stay there. I want to get home.
Yeah.
So obviously my imagination went mental on me, and I just rolled with it.
Yeah, because I'm currently rereading book one at the moment, and I'm nearly at the end of book one. It was a good few years ago that I read all three of your books, but I've just finished the part where they're taking on, is it the Turkish people over that river?
Yeah, the border crossing.
Yeah, and honestly, it's so well written. It's almost like I can visualise myself being there. You've written it in such a way that I understand it, but I don't understand it at the same time. But it's almost like I'm there, the way you've written it.
That was the sort of thing I was trying for. I mean, it can give you an experience of it, but it can give you a sort of taste, and that's what I was hoping to accomplish.
So I can imagine that's what it would have been like.
Yeah, well, that's it. When I was writing, I thought, I want the readers to understand that, you're not robots, and you don't turn to, and obviously if you're trained and stuff, you don't turn to emotional quivering wrecks. But, sometimes insignificant little things will go through your head just before you go into a battle, and you think, why is that just pops into my head, about popping the boots and stuff. But, and also, the sights, the sounds, the smells, the feelings, the way you notice the smallest details beforehand, why your stomach's in knots, and, that, the proverbial is about to hit the fan, and you think, right, here we go. And I just wanted to give the readers just as much of a feel for that as what, as I could manage. And, obviously hearing that from you, I've heard it from, other readers that have been in touch and stuff. So, I seem to have got it right at some point.
Sure. I mean, paratroopers generally are not well known for being articulate. I mean, we all know that you're not robots, and you have soldiers have feelings, and we know that's there. But I mean, was it difficult for you to actually put those feelings down on paper? I mean, did the old soldier in you kind of kick in and say, "Well, you can't talk about your feelings," you know?
No, I mean, amongst the British Army, I mean, I've worked with the American Army. I've worked with armies from all over the world, but without sound like I'm insulting them, because I'm not, but the Americans tend to be a little more macho in their approach to things and stuff.
Yeah.
Except for obviously when they get home and they're screaming, "You weren't there, man," and all that kind of stuff. But British soldiers, I mean, we don't actually, we wouldn't so much as like talk about our emotions, but we'd know it. We'd automatically know it. You'd be able to see it in each other's faces, you see it in each other's eyes, and obviously if you've experienced the same things, you know what they've experienced. So you don't really need to speak about it. You just got that mutual understanding of what each other has suffered. But yeah, I mean, so getting it down on paper, if I was writing from a personal perspective what I felt, then yeah, it'd probably be more difficult. But I was sort of like detached, when I was writing, let's say Marcus, when I was writing Marcus's character and what was going through his mind and what he was feeling during certain situations. It was much easier for me to get it down on paper about what he was going through, because I was sort of like writing
He's
about
been there.
something else. Yeah.
Yeah. So you wasn't necessarily talking about your own feelings. You were talking about Marcus's feelings, which you could articulate.
Yeah. But it all comes back to the feelings that I felt. And so in a way, I sort of like immerse myself in my own non-reality.
Because I mean, in a complete kind of like antithesis in characters, you've got his brother Steve, who's a bit of a deadbeat, bit of a loser, and he becomes this like have-a-go hero, doesn't he? He steps up to the plate. He gets his daughter to the safari park, and he gets he helps people on the way. He gets his sister-in-law and her kids and everything. I mean, did you have any inspiration for that character? Is it based on anyone you know?
It's actually based on a number of people. I mean, I think everyone can turn around and say that they've known someone like Steve.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Steve that's in the first couple of chapters of the book. I mean, they could turn around and say, well, yeah, I know a guy like that. He could have done something, but he decided to float through life, take the easy routes, and so on and so forth. But I mean, he wasn't really going anywhere to start with, but then when his daughter came along, he realised, I have got a purpose, and then suddenly, the dead start coming back to life, many years later, and even though he didn't want to, he realised, who else is going to do it? I've got to look after myself, I've got to look after my daughter. Next, his brother is good enough to call him from Iraq and say, listen, take care of my family as well while you're there.
Yeah, so his brother must see the potential in him.
Yeah, and it's one of them, in the usual modern society, he never shone. He was never really given that opportunity, and he never really wanted to take that opportunity. But when it's all crumbling around him, there's nobody else there, and society's on its head. So I've always felt that if society did go into a situation where it's crumbling fast, people having to step up to the mark, I think very often you'll find the people that are looked down upon within social circles are the ones that will rise as leaders.
I mean, have you seen that in personal experience around the world?
Yes. Well, I mean, I've known many soldiers that were reluctant to rise any further than being a private soldier in a rifle section. But when it's called for, let's say the situation, the section commander's down, the section second in command is down, or the machine gunner isn't performing as well as what he should be while under fire. I've seen guys that you'd least expect suddenly jump up, take the reins, and become leaders when other people that were supposed to be leaders, they're like just not really, not performing.
Yeah. Well, that's what I had a feeling you would say. Have you got a brother, Luke? I mean, is your brother relationship between Marcus and Steve is that like a reflection of your own life, or is that fictional?
No, well, that's a bit of a strange one. I mean, I do have a brother, and my brother, he's a couple of years younger than me, but we were brought up together. We joined the army more or less at the same time, joined the same regiment, served in the same company, and then we left the army roughly at the same time, and both started working in Iraq at the same time. And to give him some credit, I mean, it was partially my brother's idea that got me to write When There's No More in Hell. Yeah, because I mean, he'd always enjoyed the same things that I'd enjoyed, and obviously The Walking Dead came out, and he's like, "Have you watched it?" I was like, "Well, yeah, of course I watched it." He said, "You should write a book about that." And he was like, "What about this? What about it?" So, with a bit of encouragement from him, that's when I went for it. But
fantastic.
But going back to Steve, I mean, I'd never say that Steve is a reflection of my brother, because I've not spoken to him for a while, but he'd probably come round here and kick the crap out of me up and down the street. So I'll not say something like that. But yeah, I mean, I've known plenty of guys. I mean, I've been close mates, especially like when I was growing up in my teens and stuff, with guys that could have been something but decided, nah, I can't be bothered. That sort of thing.
Yeah. So the book's, it's set in a safari park, but if you could go anywhere during, obviously you're stuck in your house at the moment, but if you could go anywhere at all in the whole of the world during a zombie apocalypse, where would you go? Well,
this is where we talk about reality and non-reality again, isn't it? Pure fantasy. I mean, in the fantasy world, I'd be on a tropical island somewhere, surrounded by a bus full of nurses.
Oh yeah.
But in, I mean, obviously, I've written these kind of books. I've always had these sorts of fantasies going on in my head, and so I have actually gone through these scenarios myself. And I've always said, the first thing I'd do is get away from the built-up areas, get away from cities, get away from people. Become unsociable as such. Trust no one. Keep your acquaintances down to a minimum, and most importantly, like I said, get away from the cities, but get into high ground. I mean, if you're going by the zombie rules as such, I mean, they're not particularly bright. They're not particularly articulated neither. So negotiating hills and mountainous regions, I can't really see that being able to accomplish much.
Yeah.
So myself,
you can see him
I think I'd head to the Lake District.
Well, it's nice up there as well. Nice and peaceful.
Exactly. You got the best of everything up there, haven't you?
Yeah.
Beautiful landscape, and you got the high ground.
Yes.
You can't lose, can you?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we've spoke about obviously your zombie books, which are obviously why we contact you. But you're also writing some children's books, which Bex told me earlier. I didn't know. You're writing some children's books. Have you got other stuff in the? I mean, you got the children's books going, but and what are they about? And what other projects have you got coming up?
Well, yeah, I've got a couple of kids' books that have been stuck in my head since I was a kid. There are a couple of stories that my dad told me. I think he made them up as he went along, completely off the cuff. but with that good, and they've stuck with me. I mean, the main one that I'm working on at the moment is called The Lonely Bean, and it's about that one baked bean that always gets stuck in the bottom of the tin.
Oh yeah.
What happens to him? Where does he go?
Yeah.
And it's just a story that that details the adventure that he goes on. After being discarded in the tin. Obviously he wants to get back to his friends and his family, and it's just the adventure he goes on trying to get back. And he comes across a number of different animals, and none of them are willing to help him, and until he meets a colony of ants, and obviously they can relate to his situation. Ants were
they're a team.
Yeah, exactly. Big believers in having your friends and family close. So yeah, I mean, I'm working on that at the moment.
Does your dad know that that he's mentally scarred you so much that you had to finish the story?
well, yeah, I mean, I did actually tell my dad. I said, I mean, a couple of times over the years I've brought it up. I said, that actually stuck with me. And at one point it was like, what story? I don't remember it. I was like,
so every time I have a tin of beans now, I'm going to have to make sure I get the last bean out of the tin.
Exactly, and hopefully, I mean, I have thought, hopefully this is going to start something off, across the country. If it does get published and it does well, every kid in the country is going to insist on the mums and dads making sure they get that last bean out of that tin before they get started.
Absolutely. You're actually doing the world a favour here, right?
Yeah, save the beans.
Save the beans.
Yes, save the beans. So, it could start as a world movement. You never know. It might have a big organisation.
We need a hashtag on Twitter.
Yep, save the beans.
Yeah,
hashtag.
Save the beans. But yeah, I mean, once I've finished tarting about with the Lonely Bean, I am intending on going back to the post-apocalyptic stuff.
Oh, I'm so happy about that.
Well, I mean, my intention was I was going to step away from it for a while, but it's one of them things. The lure is there. I mean, I've still got an interest in it. I'm still watching The Walking Dead each week. I'm like, I could write a better story than that. So it's still there. I mean, I'm not saying that the stories are better. I'm just saying, in my opinion. So the stories are still popping into my head, and a lot of people are getting in touch with me saying, "Come on, tell me there's going to be more. Tell me there's going to be more." I'm thinking, if they want it, I enjoy it. It'd be daft not to, really.
I mean, at the risk of kind of like blowing smoke up your ass and everything, your series was the defining series that solidified my enjoyment in zombie apocalypse literature.
Really?
It was, well, I read David Wellington first, who we had on a few weeks ago, and I didn't really find anything else after that, and then my dad recommended you, my dad doesn't listen to this podcast, but apparently he's going to be listening this morning, and he recommended you to me, and so you were literally my second person that I'd ever read in zombie fiction. Before that, I'd just watched movies and things like that. And after reading your series, I got the bug, and that was it. I've not stopped. I don't think I've read anything else but zombie fiction since, which is really sad.
That's actually very wonderful to hear. I think I'm actually going to start writing a book right now. You're spurring me on.
Yeah, please write more post-apocalyptic literature, because I will be reading it.
Right, well, Bex wants more zombies. I want more bean. I can't help it. I need to know what happened to that bloody bean. Right, okay, so that's the end of the interview part of our interview. But Bex has a bit at the end of every interview that she does that's her favourite part of every bit. I think this week might be slightly different, because I think the beginning part was her favourite part. But she's fangalling all week. But this week we're doing our King of Zombie Fiction quiz. And if you don't know, Luke, basically what you need to do is Bex is going to start reading you out zombie-related questions really quickly, and you have 60 seconds to answer as many as you humanly can. You can't say just yes or no. Peter McKiernan tried that, and we told him off. So we did. Right. No pressure. Who is? I think Peter is still top of the table.
He is. Peter is still top, but I couldn't bring it in me to disqualify him.
No, so I think he's still top of the table. We have Queen of Zombie Fiction, which is Jamie Jonassy is the Queen of Zombie Fiction. Peter's the King of Zombie Fiction, and I think Ricky Fleet is second. So there's plenty of good names on the leaderboard now. So Luke, let's do Bex a big. She's going to take it easy on you anyway. Bex, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Luke, are you ready?
I'm ready.
60 seconds starts now.
What would a zombie say if it could talk?
Oh, do what?
What is the difference between a zombie and an emo kid?
Not very much.
Will zombies eventually just disintegrate, leading to an end to the zombie apocalypse?
I'd say so, yes, after about 20 years.
If I tickle a zombie, would it laugh?
Not a chance.
Where would I tickle it?
To the back of its ear.
If a zombie groans in the forest and no one is there to hear it, does it make a sound?
Yes, it does.
Since hair grows after death, how will all those Essex zombies manage to keep up with root regrowth?
Actually, that's a complete fiction. That hair doesn't grow; the skin retracts.
Oh, okay. What would a thug zombie do if somebody eyed up his missus?
He'd probably take a bite out of him, I'd say. He's not exactly going to shoot him, is he?
If a zombie accidentally stumbled into Ann Summers, what would be their toy of choice?
Black Mambo.
Right, that's it. That's the end. That's 60 seconds. Right, okay. So, Luke, unfortunately, you didn't beat Pete McKiernan, but your answers were very much funnier. So,
much better than Peter McKiernan's answers.
Luke, you have been a wonderful guest. We really do appreciate your time. Really appreciate you coming on to our podcast. It's been fantastic. Thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah, we hope you come on again.
Well, thanks for having me. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
It's been our pleasure. It's our pleasure.
Yeah, I mean, Luke Duffy was an absolutely fantastic guest.
Who?
Oh, for fuck's sake.
So the author...
He's just such a knob sometimes.
So what do you mean sometimes? So the authors seem to be doing all right. They're surviving and stuff. That's good. That's good for the future of literacy. I mean,
yeah.
If the rest of humanity remains, firmly fucked, then at least we have a fallback. We have these intellectuals, we have these people who can write, who can tell the story, and that will ensure the prosperity of the human race.
I mean, yeah, even if you're not a writer, or if you're in the arts in some way and you're alive, get in touch. We want to hear from you. We just love having anyone on this show, don't we?
Yeah. So just come on. I mean, that's fine. We don't really care, because we're not fussy. Really, we're not fussy.
You could be a zombophiliac.
A zombophiliac. We don't care. But we do have some really good guests coming up. So next week we have someone who you probably haven't heard of, but is a really interesting person. So they're coming on next week. The week after we have someone who you definitely have heard of, and I can guarantee that. And then the week after that...
If you haven't, have you been living under a rock?
Yeah, exactly. And then the week after that, we have someone who you probably have heard of, only because they're on this podcast. And then the week after that, you have a superstar, another superstar. We have superstar, superstar, not superstar, superstar, not superstar, superstar. That's how it works. We have alternative superstars.
But, we're dead popular now. We're getting, people are liking us now. Give us money. We need money.
We don't need money. It's the apocalypse. We don't need money. What we need is food.
We need food, yeah. Food that's not from Tony the Butcher.
Yeah, we definitely... No, because he's our sponsor. What we need is... Let's make a list, okay? Let's have a wish list. Do you know how sometimes...
Like on Amazon?
I was going to say like how porn stars have wish lists and then rich people buy it. But I mean that's
like an Amazon wish list. That's the common person's wish list.
Yeah,
not a porn star wish list.
Not a porn star wish list, right? So if you imagine that I was a porn star and you wanted to buy me gifts, this is how you do it. We need stuff. So I need a replacement pokey pointy stick. I also need tins of ravioli. I've nearly run out of ravioli. The children also need stuff like toothpaste and I don't know, all that sort of stuff. So if you could send me that would be great. Bex needs obviously more wine. She's nearly run out of wine.
My raid on Threshers didn't last very long.
Yeah, so she needs more wine. If failing wine, just maybe some white spirits. That'll be fine. She's all right with that. She's quite happy to just sniff some glue. That'll be fine. Just send her some glue. Whatever, really.
Yeah.
That's all good.
Awesome.
Yeah. The only thing she sort of deviates away from slightly are things like gin. She won't drink gin. It makes her gag. So don't not that. That's not good. But the rest of that, anything it's got alcohol content in it, she's good. She's good to go.
You know me so well.
Paint thinner, that's fine.
That's a good one. That actually. Yeah.
That's good if you mix it with the right thing. Bit
of orange juice.
Good job it's the end of the world and no one's listening to this podcast. Otherwise we could have children all over the universe drinking paint.
Well, I'd have social services on my back.
You would indeed. Right, so Luke Duffy was a fantastic guest. I really enjoyed having him on. He was one of, I wouldn't say he was our best guest, because that's demeaning to previous guests. I would say he's one of them. He's one of my favourite people in the zombie literary world. I think because of his history in the services, he can tell a story which other people, can't always
struggle.
Yeah, they can't always reach the heights that someone who has actually been there and done it can. That's not to say that they're bad writers, and it's not to say that he's a great writer. I'm just saying you can relate because of the personal history. So he's one of my favourite people in the field. So he was one of my favourite interviews, and I really enjoyed his company. He was a great guy. So thank you, Mr. Luke Duffy. Thank you to everyone who listened. Thank you to Bex for being sober for 20 minutes and doing the interview. That was great. I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I think that is pretty much it.
Yeah, okay. So, back to the shapocalypse, I suppose.
Shapocalypse. Yeah, do you know, there's no action outside my window, so shapocalypse it is.
Remember, everybody, to stay safe.
But most importantly, remember to kick ass.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.